My husband's like, babe, like if that's what the doctors recommend, then like shouldn't we just follow their recommendations? But I'm not that person. Like I am not the person who's just like, a doctor tells me to do something, so I should do it. But I think that he also is just concerned because he doesn't want us to go through anything similar like we did with our first. Hi everyone, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. This morning I had my 36-week doctor appointment, and there's just so much going on in my head right now after this appointment. I don't even know what to think or like what my plan is. Like I just feel kind of overwhelmed by everything and a little underwhelmed at the same time, if that's even possible. So I'm just going to share everything that happened, all the information I was given, and then all of you can give me your opinions, because I love your opinions, and then tell me what you would do, I guess. Like tell me what your thoughts are, how you would handle it if you've been in similar situations. Just like give me all the information to help me make a decision, because I don't really know what I'm doing or anything. I don't know. I just feel a little overwhelmed by things, but yeah. So let's start with the baby being big, because that is a concern for me. If you don't know, with my first, he was over 8 pounds and he was stuck. Now he did have his like hand kind of like weird to his face. So I don't know if he was stuck because of like his positioning or if it was because he was an 8-pound baby. And I guess like having a baby that's over 8 pounds can be considered big. I don't know. That's what I've been told, I guess. So I don't know if it was that's what made him get stuck, which led to me hemorrhaging and all the other scary things that went on with that labor and delivery. If you have not watched that video, I recommend you go and watch that. But I think because of that experience, the idea of having a really large baby stresses me out a little bit. And I know people have like 10-pound babies and like deliver 10-pound babies and they have no issues. Just because of my prior experience, I think that that's just adds a little extra stress. So I brought that up to my OB today, which I saw an OB that I've never seen before, which doesn't help either, because she had to go and like read my history and look into my history to like gain more information. So she was like, well, you look like a normal 36-week pregnant belly, like you don't look huge. But she gave me an ultrasound in the regular like room that they have there. So it wasn't like a high-tech ultrasound by any means. And was trying to like do measurements on him, which if you've ever had an ultrasound really far along in pregnancy, it's hard to see anything. So we got to see an ultrasound, but we pretty much saw the top of his head because he's head down, which is great. So we saw like the top of his head. She was trying to like get some measurements of his belly, but he's so like curled up in there. It was really, really hard. She pretty much told me like, you know, measurements this far along are not very accurate, that she's not going to be very accurate because she is not an ultrasound tech. So like, you know, she's like, I can do ultrasounds and I do an ultrasound, but I'm not going to be as accurate as like an actual tech. But she wasn't so concerned about him being like super big or anything based on the ultrasound. But she's like, I can't guarantee whether or not he's going to be really big or not. But I probably am going to have a big baby because my other babies were larger. So she's like, we should just assume that you're going to have a big baby. And her recommendation to me was to be induced at 39 weeks. So as we stand right now, that is what she would prefer for me to do. I don't know how I feel about that. I have a lot of feelings when it comes to, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't like with anything, when we are taking control of things, it should be like natural. And I do worry if I'm induced and I'm given these chemicals that are supposed to replicate what our bodies are doing naturally, right? That there might cause other concerns or other issues. And maybe that's just me being like, our bodies are supposed to do this naturally, and like we shouldn't, disrupt that. So maybe I'm just overthinking it. And my husband's like, babe, like if that's what the doctors recommend, then like shouldn't we just follow their recommendations? But I'm not that person. Like I am not the person who's just like, a doctor tells me to do something, so I should do it. But I think that he also is just concerned because he doesn't want us to go through anything similar like we did with our first. And I was not induced with our first either. So during that whole conversation about, is he big, is he not big, and should we induce you, should we not induce you, she was like, you guys have some time to think about it. And when you get to your next appointment at 38 weeks, we will discuss it further. So yeah, she basically was like, let's get to 38 weeks. And if you're still pregnant, then we will discuss an induction date and when we want to induce you. And she's like, there's not really much we can do or say to kind of figure out how much bigger your baby is really getting. Like it's just kind of a guessing game. And it's easiest for us just to assume that he's going to be big and just take that precaution if I'm still pregnant at 38 weeks. And I asked, can I get a membrane sweep at 38 weeks? Because I would prefer that type of induction versus a chemical induction, like versus getting chemical, like a chemical, like an IV chemical to help induce labor, or like they can do stuff where they put it on your cervix. There's different things they can do to induce you. But she's like, let's not talk about that yet. Let's wait till we get to 38 weeks, because I was like not quite on board with the idea of induction at this point. And she said, yeah, like I would give you one. I'm not sure if I'm going to see her, because the way our hospital's set up, like you see different OBs every time you go in there for an appointment, because you never know, who's going to deliver your baby when you give birth at the hospital. And she's like, I would give you a membrane sweep at 38 weeks. I think that most doctors here would also give you a membrane sweep at 38 weeks. So that's my plan at this point, is that we'll wait to 38 weeks. I'm still pregnant. Then I will get a membrane sweep. But something she brought to my attention that I guess I'd never really clicked in my head before, which it makes a lot of sense. But she said that once you've fully dilated and delivered a baby, your cervix is really favorable, is the word she used, and very soft overall. Like since that experience, it just never quite goes back to how it was before. So she's like, having a membrane sweep or an induction tends to go really fast or a lot smoother of a transition into labor than with your first time. So if you're being induced for your very first pregnancy, the process can be a lot harder, but because you've already, delivered before, your cervix is already going to be ripe and soft, even because you're at the end of your pregnancy, but even more because your cervix is already dilated before. So she's like, I don't want you to be scared that you're going to be, being induced for 24 hours or being in induction for a really long time, because it's probably not the case. I think she was just trying to make me feel better, because I think that that's my fears, and I'm going to start a medical procedure and I'm going to spend hours in a hospital room, in a hospital bed, in labor, because I'm being forced into labor, if that makes sense. But maybe I'm just stressing myself out for no reason. And I'm hoping that plenty of you have been induced and you can make me feel better about the situation. And I'm just going to try, once I get to 38 weeks, I think I'm just going to try everything possible to send myself into labor naturally. So if you have ideas on how to kickstart labor, please share them below in the comments. And I've pretty much heard that you can try anything, you can do all these different things, but like if your body's not like ready for labor, you're not going to go into labor. So I don't know. I'm stressed that I'm gonna have a big baby and that I'm gonna have complications like I did with my first, and what if he gets stuck, and what if I hemorrhage, and yeah, stressing me out. Yeah. So also I had my group B strep swab. Everyone gets it at like 36 weeks, I think, which is really like normal. Like I'm used to doing that, right? But the one thing was not normal was the fact that at this hospital, they don't do it for you. So I didn't have like an actual, like I didn't, get an exam and then they didn't do it for me, which is weird. You did it yourself, which also was kind of disappointing because I was hoping that the OB would check to see if I'm dilated, which I don't think that I'm actually dilated, but I was hoping, when she would go look, she could tell me what stage he's in, or station. I can't remember what the proper word is, but I'll put a picture here so you can kind of see. But your baby has like different positions they're in as like labor is going on, and it can kind of help you tell if like your baby has dropped, because sometimes, not always, your baby will drop before you dilate. With my first, my son was like really, really like, he was, I think he was like -1 and 4 or something like that. The last appointment I had. So like a -1 station, and I was 4 centimeters dilated before I went into labor with him. One of my doctor's appointments. And then my most recent, my youngest son, she's like, I can barely even touch your cervix because he's so high. Like she was like, he's like way, way up in there. When she was trying to do my membrane sweep when I had him. And the next day, I had like less than 24 hours I had him. So I was kind of just hoping like I could get a little bit of information, but she was like, yeah, no, we don't check your cervix at 36 weeks, and we don't do this at either. We just let you guys do it yourself. And it was the first time I've ever had that. I've never had to like swab myself, I guess. I don't know. But the group B strep, if you've been pregnant before to 36 weeks, if you've had it done before, so you know what I'm talking about. It was just an interesting situation. I was like, I've never done this before. Other good news. So I'm trying to be positive here. Other good news. My titers or titers, I never say that properly, were less than 1 the last time I had my blood drawn. So this OB was like, you don't have to get any more. She's like, you're not going to make it past 40 weeks. We're going to make sure you don't go past 40 weeks. So she's like, you don't have to have any more of your blood tests done because you will give birth before we will have to do another test. She's like, I'm not worried. There's no point in you getting any more blood tests, which I am so happy about because that was like a really big stress early on in pregnancy. And thankfully, once I hit like the second half of pregnancy, pretty much, it seemed like my numbers went down and they've just stayed really, really low, which is great to hear. So there's no concern there. And obviously he is getting all of the blood and everything that he needs because he's a big old boy in there. I also weigh 160 pounds, which is the most I have ever weighed in my life. So that's making me also believe that he has to be a big baby because all of the weight that I've pretty much gained is in my belly. Like my belly is big. I haven't really put on I haven't put on any extra weight. Like I don't think, maybe my face might look a little bit like puffier now that I'm getting to the end of pregnancy. I'm not quite sure, but I don't think I've put on like extra weight. My clothes still fit me. The other day I took some maternity photos, which at some point maybe I'll share them with you guys, but I put on a pair of jeans that I wore pre-pregnancy, and like my jeans, everything, they went all the way up just like perfectly fine. Obviously I couldn't button them because I got a big belly, but I was like, look, my jeans even still fit. But 160 pounds is the most that I have ever weighed in my life, and I'm hoping that I'm not like spending forever losing weight after I give birth. Yeah, I'm just This is like a 36-week appointment, just like put so much on my mind, and I'm so ready to deliver. I'm so ready to have a baby, but I also want to do things the safest, most natural way that I can do it. Yeah. So I'm hoping you guys can share some good stories with me. This is like my like stress out session right here. I'm just sitting in our nursery stressing about what is going to happen with labor and delivery. And I think that's like something that people who have had traumatic birth stories, who have been through a traumatic experience just in general, like knowing that you're about to go through an experience that could be similar, or like, you know, like, I don't know how to explain this. Like, because I've had that traumatic birth experience, it's really hard for me not to worry that that is what's going to happen again. And even with my youngest, which his labor happened really, really fast. I was even discussing this with my mother-in-law. I don't know if she's gonna watch this video, but the other day about how I like never had, like my contractions with my youngest were never as painful as the contractions I had with my first. And like, even she was like, I thought you were gonna go to the hospital and get sent away. She's like, I didn't even think that they were gonna be like, you're in labor. And because of how I was acting so differently, right, when I had him. And then when I got to the hospital, it was like a rush because he was like already coming. And I was in the hospital for like less than 30 minutes and he was born. I didn't expect it to go so fast, but as soon as he was born, and I so I gave birth like on all fours. So I like took him up from between my legs and I grabbed him, like, and I was holding him, like kind of like leaning on one arm and like holding him with the other arm. And I brought him to my chest and then I like rolled over, if that makes sense, to like lay on my back to like hold him. And I'm like looking at my baby, like in that moment that I'm like, all these like, you know, hormones, everything's going through your body. And I was super excited to hold him. But I remember just being like, am I bleeding? Like, am I, is everything okay? Like, am I bleeding? Like, I'm not hemorrhaging, am I? Like, and that's the first thing that like was going through my mind in that moment, because of that prior experience. And I know no matter how great this labor and delivery experience may be, it's always going to be in the back of my mind during that process that I could bleed out. And now I don't just have like my husband and my one baby that I could leave behind, but I have 2 other kids, and then like the baby that I'm carrying, like 3 kids that need their mom to be there. So now I'm gonna cry. So I just add stress. And I'm just, if you guys are the praying type, just pray for me, pray for my mental health, and pray for my physical health, and pray that this labor and delivery goes smoothly. And yeah, I appreciate all of you watching this video, but I'm gonna stop filming now because I'm crying, and no one needs to see that. No one needs to see me break down on video. All right. I will see you guys probably next week. I need to finish up. There's like a few things that I need to do to like finish preparing before we bring baby home. So my plan is to do all that stuff probably this weekend. That way it's all done at least sometime next week. I just want everything done before I go in for my 38-week appointment, in the hope that maybe we can kickstart labor the week of Easter, like the week after Easter. My plan is to try and make myself go into labor. Like, so share your tips on how to induce labor naturally below, and I'll catch up with all of you hopefully next week. Bye.